There's a box on your balcony. You meant to move it last spring, but now it's just there, blending into the background, gathering dust, holding things you don't really need but haven't thrown out either. It doesn't seem important. After all, we all have corners like that, entryways with too many shoes, balconies turned into storage, a bit of mess in places we don't spend much time in. But what if those quiet spaces are saying more than you think? In Feng Shui, the entryway and the balcony aren't just architectural features. They're gateways. The front door greets every form of energy, stress, joy, money, visitors, health. The balcony is your home's way of breathing. When these gateways are blocked, ignored, or treated like afterthoughts, it's not just about clutter, it's about what's not getting through. Promotions that feel just out of reach. Sleep that's never quite restful. That sense of always almost, but never fully. And no, it's not superstition. It's not magic. It's how environments influence emotion, how flow affects focus, how light and openness shape what we allow into our lives. The truth is, energy, like opportunity, needs space. And too often that space is quietly choked by what we've overlooked. The good news, it doesn't take a full remodel to shift it. Sometimes it's just one shelf moved, one pile cleared, one curtain drawn. This video isn't about rules or rituals. It's about awareness, about seeing familiar spaces with fresh eyes, and understanding how small adjustments in your home might unlock what's been stuck far too long. Because the box on your balcony may not seem like much, but in the language of energy, it might be the reason something good has been waiting and turning away. Part 1, a front door that no longer welcomes. There's a kind of silence some homes carry. You feel it the moment you step inside. Not a peaceful silence, but a kind that feels paused, stuck, like a conversation that never quite begins. And strangely, it often starts right at the front door, because the way your home greets you sets the tone for everything else. In Feng Shui, the front door is called the mouth of energy. It's where everything enters: opportunity, health, relationships, clarity. But too many entryways in modern homes have become narrow, cramped, or exposed. We remove the welcome mat, stack shoes against the wall, let the door open straight into the heart of our private space. And then we wonder why life feels rushed, overwhelming, or oddly disconnected. Take a moment and think about your own front door. Not just what it looks like, but what it feels like to arrive home. Do you breathe deeper when you step in? Or do you brace yourself for mess, for noise, for everything waiting just beyond the threshold? Is the space open, or does it reveal everything inside to anyone standing at the door? Do you feel received or exposed? When the front door offers a straight, unfiltered view into the living room or kitchen, it's not just a design flaw, it's an energetic drain. Imagine inviting a guest into your home, and before you can offer them a seat, they've already seen the clutter on your dining table, the TV blaring, or the sink full of dishes. That guest may smile politely, but something inside them will step back. Energy reacts the same way. Without a natural pause, without something to slow it down, it rushes in and rushes right out. And there's more. A front door that opens straight into the home often invites a kind of subtle anxiety. You may not notice it, but your body does. The lack of boundary between the outside world and your inner life creates a sense of exposure, even when no one's watching. It can lead to feeling constantly alert, like there's no real place to let your guard down. Over time, this takes a toll on your sleep, your mood, your sense of calm. But here's the part most people miss. This isn't about aesthetics. It's about how space makes you feel and what it signals to your nervous system. A front door that gently transitions you from public to private, from outside to inside, creates a feeling of arrival. It tells your body you're home now, you're safe, you can exhale. And that emotional release, it's where restoration begins. You don't need to rebuild your entrance. You don't need expensive renovations. Sometimes it's as simple as creating a soft stop, a tall plant, a semi-sheer curtain, a shelf with gentle lighting, something that allows energy to land before moving deeper into your home, something that gives you, even for a moment, a sense of shifting gears. Let's be honest. So many of us live in a constant state of rush. We come home and barely notice the space we pass through. We drop keys, bags, tension, all in the first few steps. But what if those steps became a ritual, a quiet signal to your mind and body that the outside world stays at the door, and here within these walls is a different pace? There's a reason certain homes feel warm before you even speak to anyone. It's not always the furniture or the lighting. Sometimes it's the invisible grace of a well-held entrance, a place that slows you down just enough to feel present. A space that says, with every detail, you belong here, you're allowed to rest. The front door doesn't just protect your home, it introduces it. It's the handshake, the invitation, the first breath of your environment. And when it's ignored, when it's rushed, cluttered, or too exposed, it sends a message. To visitors, to energy, and most importantly, to you. So stand at your front door for a moment. Look not just at but at the experience. Does it welcome you in or push you through? Does it give you space to arrive or remind you of what you're already late for? In a world that constantly demands your attention, your energy, your effort, what if the way you enter your own home could give something back? It starts at the threshold, and it starts with noticing. Part 2, the shoe cabinet that collects stuck energy. You probably don't think much about your shoe cabinet. It's just there, by the door, doing its job. Maybe it's overstuffed. Maybe it smells a little like damp leather and dust. Maybe it's the first thing you see when you come home and the last thing you glance at before leaving. But in Feng Shui, and more importantly, in the way energy and emotion live in a space, that cabinet might be doing more than storing your shoes. It might be holding onto things you didn't know you were still carrying. Let's start with something simple. Energy needs space to move. Not in some vague, mystical way, but in the most grounded, everyday sense. We feel lighter in clean, open spaces. We breathe deeper when clutter is gone. We move differently when our homes feel calm. But your shoe cabinet, especially if it's messy, overcrowded, or poorly placed, is like a traffic jam at the very entrance of your life. Instead of a welcome, it becomes a wall. Instead of movement, it becomes stagnation. Shoes are deeply symbolic. They carry everything you've walked through, literally and energetically. They've been through offices, subways, grocery aisles, airports, hospital rooms. They hold the weight of your daily life and sometimes the stress of it too. When those shoes pile up at your front door, muddy, worn, mismatched, they create a field of noise. Visual noise, sensory noise, emotional noise. You may not register it consciously, but your body does. Your nervous system does, and it reacts. Have you ever walked into a house and instantly felt a sense of heaviness, like the air was thicker, the space a little tense? Chances are the entryway told you that story, and the shoe cabinet was a chapter in it. Because when the first thing you see is a pile of forgotten souls and tangled laces, your body doesn't relax, it prepares. It braces. It holds tension. It says this place is busy, messy, overwhelming. You shift into defense mode without even meaning to. That's not a welcome, that's a warning. There's also something else that happens. Energy gathers where attention goes. And when we leave old shoes sitting for months, pairs we haven't worn in seasons, sneakers we've outgrown, boots with cracked soles, we're saying something to our space. We're saying, I don't know what I'm keeping, but I'm keeping it anyway. We create small pockets of indecision, stuck energy, and then we wonder why we feel indecisive, heavy, or mentally cluttered ourselves. Now, this doesn't mean you have to throw out half your closet. This isn't about minimalism for the sake of aesthetics. It's about intention. What do you keep near your front door and why? Is it there because it supports your daily life or because you didn't know where else to put it? Is your cabinet organized, breathable, and clean? Or is it a graveyard for shoes that no longer serve you? Here's something you can try. Stand at your front door, look at the cabinet, and ask yourself, is this helping me exhale or tighten up? That's your clue, because good Feng Shui isn't about rules, it's about responses. How your space responds to you, and how you respond to it. If you've ever felt like your mornings start in a rush, or like coming home never quite feels like a return, it might not be about the job, or the people, or the noise. It might be about the first 3 feet of your house. The place where your body says, I'm home, or I'm not ready. And here's where the emotional shift happens. When you start treating your shoe cabinet like a place of pause, not just storage, it becomes a transition point. from public to private, from outer world to inner peace. Imagine opening your front door and seeing a small cabinet with only the shoes you wear this season, a soft scent drifting upward, a eucalyptus sachet or cedar wood, a drawer that closes fully, a space that says, this is cared for, this is enough, this is intentional. You deserve to walk into a home that meets you with stillness, not chaos. You deserve to exhale in the first few seconds. And yes, that feeling can start with something as ordinary as a shoe rack, because the ordinary things speak the loudest. They're the habits we pass through every day, and when those habits shift, so does everything else. The high point isn't just in realizing that clutter causes stress. It's in recognizing how quietly that stress has been speaking, and how quickly it fades when space is honored. You may notice it the day after you clean, the way your breath slows, the way your shoulders drop an inch. You may find yourself putting on your shoes a little more slowly, more mindfully. And that too is Feng Shui, presence over perfection. So here's the gentle challenge. Tonight, open your shoe cabinet. Not to judge it, not to feel bad, but to listen. What have you been keeping out of habit? What's hiding at the back that hasn't moved in a year? What do you no longer walk in, but still hold space for? You don't need to buy anything new. You don't need to change your home's architecture. You just need to give the doorway to your life the respect it deserves. Shoes off, energy in, space made for something better. It doesn't take much. Sometimes clarity starts at your feet. Sometimes peace begins with the way you enter your own life. And sometimes all it takes is opening a cabinet and letting go. Part 3, a balcony that can no longer breathe. There's something oddly heartbreaking about a balcony that no longer sees the sky. You step out expecting fresh air, and instead you're met with boxes, storage bins, broken furniture, a bike no one's ridden in years, holiday decorations in faded plastic tubs. It's a space that was once built to breathe, and now it can't. And neither can you. The balcony, in Feng Shui and in lived experience, isn't just an outdoor ledge. It's a lung. It's where your home inhales sunlight and exhales what no longer serves you. It's where light touches your skin first thing in the morning, where wind passes gently through, where energy moves, shifts, refreshes. But when we begin using it as a dumping ground, when we pile up the objects we don't want to face inside, it doesn't just collect clutter, it collects stagnation. And that stagnation doesn't stay outside, it seeps inward. Think about the last time you stepped out onto your own balcony. Did you feel a sense of calm or guilt? Did you breathe deeper or feel a tightness in your chest? Did you pause or did you quickly turn around? These aren't small moments, they are silent feedback loops. When the space outside becomes a burden, your nervous system registers that. And what should have been a release becomes a quiet weight you carry every day. We tend to treat the balcony like a non-room, not fully inside, not fully outside. And in that gray zone, we store what we don't want to deal with. But energetically, that space is still connected to your life, especially when it sits just beyond your living room, your bedroom, or your workspace. That blocked view, those stagnant corners, they echo back into your emotional world. A cluttered balcony often mirrors a mind overwhelmed by loose ends. It tells a story of "I'll get to it later." And later becomes a season, a year, a cycle that never breaks. But the real cost isn't visual, it's emotional. Because when you stand at your own window and see a mess you've learned to ignore, a part of you begins to normalize stuckness. You become used to putting things off. You get comfortable with disconnection. The mind adapts to the visual landscape it lives in. And when that landscape says, "This is as good as it gets," a quiet resignation settles in. That resignation doesn't scream, it whispers, and slowly, it dulls your desire to improve other areas too. Now, the balcony doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look like a magazine spread. But it does need room to move, to breathe, to let the sun fall, to let the air in. Even a small, narrow balcony can carry energy if it's treated with care. A single chair, a soft light, a plant that dances in the breeze. These are not decorations, they are invitations to pause, to breathe, to remember that something as simple as a clean corner can create internal calm. The emotional peak here isn't about shame, it's about awakening. Because often it takes just one moment of really seeing the space to change the entire relationship. Not just with the balcony, but with the self. You clean it once and suddenly there's a place to sit with coffee again. You move an old bin and now sunlight hits the floor. You hang wind chimes or hang fresh plants and the air feels alive. And with that, your energy shifts, not in theory, but in practice. You start using that space again, not as storage, but as stillness. If you've been feeling stuck, unmotivated, emotionally closed off, it might be worth asking, is the part of my home that breathes still breathing? Or have I silenced it without realizing? Because the home, like the body, will show you what's blocked, and the balcony, when cared for, becomes a soft exhale. Reclaiming your balcony doesn't require a renovation. It requires release. Let go of what's expired, what's broken, what you haven't touched in years. Make space, not for design, but for possibility. You might find that the act of clearing the balcony clears something else too, a thought pattern, a weight, a restlessness. Because when your balcony breathes, your life breathes. When that space opens, your mind does too, and often the biggest transformations begin with the smallest square of floor you decide to uncover. You deserve light. You deserve air. You deserve one spot, just one that asks for nothing but your presence. So step out, sweep the dust, water the plant, sit for 5 minutes in silence. Let the wind remind you that movement is always possible, even in the stillest corners, even after long silence, even on a balcony that forgot how to breathe, until today. Part 4, Sharp Corners, Invisible Arrows. There's a strange kind of tension you feel in some rooms, and you can't quite explain why. The space is clean, the colors are soft, nothing appears out of place. And yet, something feels off. You find yourself rubbing your shoulders more often, feeling unsettled, maybe even snapping at small things. It's easy to blame the mood, the weather, the people. But sometimes the tension is architectural. Sometimes it's not about what you see, but about what you're not noticing at all. Like a sharp corner, like an invisible arrow. In Feng Shui, there's a belief that sharp angles, especially when they point directly at where you sit, rest, or work, act like energetic daggers. They're not dangerous in the way a knife is, but they subtly cut through the natural flow of energy in a room. They create pressure, instability, and over time they can quietly wear down your sense of calm. But even without naming it as Feng Shui, anyone who's ever tried to relax next to a protruding shelf or sat under a slanted ceiling knows the feeling. The body never fully lets go. It stays on alert, tracking that edge like it might move. It's primal, deep, unspoken. Now think about your home. Where are the sharp corners pointing? A bookshelf with pointed ends facing your bed. A TV unit with sharp angles aimed right at the sofa. A storage unit at the hallway's end, forming a visual spear every time you walk by. These aren't just design choices, they're directional signals. And when those signals aim at the spaces where you need softness, they create tension in ways you may have never connected. The problem is, modern design often favors clean lines and boxy shapes. But too many hard angles in a small space can create an emotional climate of edge and contraction. The room feels tight. Conversations become shorter. Focus becomes harder. Rest becomes elusive. And instead of feeling held by your space, you feel pushed by it. It's not about being afraid of shapes. It's about being conscious of what they point toward. Because energy, like attention, moves in lines. And when those lines aim directly at your body or your most used living areas, they create invisible pressure. You might feel it as fatigue, as low-level anxiety, as a constant sense of being on edge, literally and emotionally. Now here comes the emotional high point, the moment of realization. Many of us have been sitting in spaces that poke at us for years, and we thought it was just stress. We blamed work, age, relationships, but part of that burden may have been built into our surroundings. A jagged shelf behind your back, a corner of a countertop pointed at your dining chair, a desk edge aligned perfectly with your bed. Small things, overlooked things, but felt deeply over time. And here's the beautiful truth. It doesn't take tearing down walls to fix it. It takes softening, thoughtful redirection. A round leaf plant placed in front of a pointed shelf. a lightweight fabric or hanging mobile to interrupt a visual line. Even a tall lamp with a soft glow can break the edge and replace it with warmth. You don't have to make your home look like a yoga studio. You just have to make it feel less like it's fighting you. This isn't about design trends. It's about emotional permission, to feel safe, to feel supported, to not be visually attacked by your own furniture every time you walk into a room. And once you make the shift, you'll notice how differently your body behaves. Shoulders drop, breathing deepens, that twitchy, unsettled energy fades. There's a reason certain rooms make you sigh in relief. It's not the paint color, it's the lack of harsh lines, the way corners are tucked away, the way no object is pointing at you, demanding your subconscious attention. You feel held, not watched, protected, not prodded. So the next time you feel inexplicably irritable at home, take a slow look around. Follow the lines, trace what's aimed at where. Ask yourself, if I sat here for an hour, would my body feel safe? That's your compass. That's how you know what needs to shift. The impact is real, not dramatic, not mystical, just real, quietly transformational. Because the spaces we live in become the patterns we live by. And when those spaces are softened, when the sharpness is eased, something in us softens too. We respond, we expand. We return to a state we didn't realize we'd left behind. So round the edges, move the shelf, add the curtain. Let the corner plant do its gentle job. Give your space a chance to stop poking you and start holding you instead. You deserve a home that feels like a hug, not a hallway of arrows. And you don't have to wait for the perfect weekend or the perfect setup. Start with what's pointing at you. Start with what's too sharp to ignore. Start with one invisible arrow and turn it into something that lets you rest. Part 5, the overhead beam that weighs everything down. You may not notice it at first, just a beam across the ceiling, a structural line, silent and still. But after a while, your shoulders ache more than they should. You take shorter breaths when entering that room. You feel heavier, not because of the day or the weather, but because something above you is quietly pressing down. In Feng Shui, an overhead beam is more than a piece of architecture. It's an energetic weight. Especially when it sits above your bed, your desk, or your front door, it creates a force, unseen but undeniable, that disrupts flow, focus, and ease. And the impact isn't just symbolic. It's physical, emotional, persistent. Imagine walking into your own home and the very first thing above your head is a long, heavy beam. Even if your eyes adjust and your mind says, it's just part of the ceiling, your body says something else. It registers tension. It adjusts posture. It adapts to discomfort. And over time, it accepts that weight as normal, even though it's not. You may feel drained without knowing why. You may wake up tired even after a full night's sleep. You may struggle to concentrate, feel motivated, or fully relax, and still you won't think to look up. But that's exactly where the issue lies. Above, quiet, constant. Overhead beams, especially when exposed, cut the room in half, visually and energetically. They interrupt the open space that energy needs to circulate. They create pockets of stagnation. Worse, when a beam runs across your bed or sofa, it divides you. It places a symbolic line across your rest, your relationships, your thoughts. The space becomes less about restoration and more about holding yourself together beneath pressure. Nowhere is this more disruptive than above the front door. The entrance is where new energy arrives. It's the start of flow, the mouth of opportunity. And when a beam hovers right at that threshold, it's like asking guests and energy to duck as they walk in. It's an immediate compression, a subtle message that says, don't get too comfortable here. And that message doesn't just reach guests, it reaches you. The high point here is a quiet awakening. What you've normalized might be what's exhausting you. Not in one dramatic moment, but in the day-after-day presence of a ceiling that feels too close. We underestimate how much the body remembers. And a beam that looms over your meals, your rest, your dreams, can slowly convince you that tension is a fact of life. That carrying pressure is just how it is, but it's not. And the beauty is you don't have to demolish anything to change this. What needs to shift is not the beam, but how your space responds to it. Soften the weight, distract the line. Hang a pendant light just below to draw the eye lower. Paint the ceiling a bright tone so the beam blends in rather than cuts across. Add upward-facing light that lifts the energy visually. Use fabric or light wooden panels to create a false ceiling if possible, one that doesn't press but cradles. This isn't about hiding flaws, it's about rewriting messages. Every part of your home tells a story. The beam tells one too, but when you soften its presence, you change what it says. From hold yourself together to you're safe here. From brace for weight to let go now. These shifts are small, but they ripple into everything else. Because when you lift what hangs above, you lift something inside too. You breathe deeper, you walk slower, you no longer duck inside your own home, and you begin to notice how often you used to. That's the transformation, not aesthetic, not spiritual, just deeply human. So the next time you feel inexplicably heavy, ask yourself, what's above me, literally? And what is it saying silently? What weight have I accepted without question? Is it time to change that story? You deserve rooms that rise to meet you, not press you down. You deserve light above your head, not a shadow that lingers. And most of all, you deserve to walk through your home without the burden of invisible ceilings. Start by looking up, and then soften what you see. That one shift might be all it takes to feel a little more free, a little more clear, and a whole lot more at home. Final, maybe now you're looking at your home a little differently, not with judgment, but with a quiet kind of awareness. You've seen how a single box on the balcony can block breath, how the front door, if too exposed, can forget how to welcome, how a shoe cabinet filled with too much of yesterday can cloud the energy of today, how sharp corners and heavy beams speak to your body even when your mind doesn't hear them. And you felt, perhaps for the first time, that your home is not just where you live, it's how you live. This isn't about rules, it's about rhythm, your rhythm, the rhythm of your mornings, your sleep, your thoughts, the way light moves through your space, the way your energy rises or doesn't when you step inside. Feng Shui, in the truest sense, is less about superstition and more about attention. It's the practice of noticing what your home has been saying to you all along. We often wait for big changes in life to feel different. A new job, a new relationship, a new year. But sometimes change starts when you move one chair, clear one shelf, let go of one object that no longer holds life, and in doing so, make space for what does. If this video has given you even one moment of pause, one thought like, yes, that's exactly how I feel when I come home, then I want to thank you, because that means you're already listening, already shifting, already creating a space that reflects not just who you are, but who you're becoming. Thank you for spending this time with me, for letting these words enter your home, your thoughts, maybe even your breath. I hope you walk away not with pressure to fix, but with permission to feel, to see, to begin again. And wherever you are in whatever kind of space you call home, I hope it meets you tonight with softness, with light, with peace. You deserve nothing less.